Hello lovelies, welcome back to The Tangent. We are in season 2 episode 7 and this episode is a story time. So I feel there are profound moments and realizations that just arrive in our lives exactly when we need them. I had one of these moments 5 years ago when I dropped out of my PhD program. So I didn't really have a plan about what I was going to do, but it was a moment I had to just trust myself with. And I am really glad that I did. So stick around for the full story. Buckle up, lovelies. We're taking a ride through some of the quirkiest corners of my life on wheels. I'm Katie, and I've been doing this disabled thing since day one. This is not your typical disability education podcast. Every tangent, every detour is a chance to look behind that curtain of disabled life, unravel the threads of confusion, and discover those, whoa, that actually makes sense moments. Eventually, this is the tangent, where laughter is the map, curiosity is the compass, and understanding blooms even in the craziest corners. Hit subscribe, grab your headphones, and get ready to be surprised, because the way to understand why is to embrace the wild, hilarious how. So let's do the thing. Okay, I have to start this story at the right point in time. And it's important to understand that I have had a wild education journey. And I have a lot of feelings about it. And I'm still working through large parts of it in therapy. You can read more about that in my book. But this episode is not about that part of my story. This story starts when I got to university. So when I started my post-school academic career, we're going to just pretend like the birds are not happening right now in the background. I started my post-school academic career, and I honestly feel like I had very little idea what I was doing. Not sure which courses to take, not sure which majors I wanted, and not sure really where I wanted to go once I got my degree. And I was pretty okay with all of that, like the not knowing and feeling unsure. I sort of just took a, like, we'll figure it out as we go approach. And I was really excited about all the new subjects that were suddenly available to me, so I was all over the place. I changed my major all the time, probably like 8 times, but just enough times to ensure that I still had enough like consistency in courses and credits to get my undergrad degree without having to extend it. But this was also an interesting thing where I had to advocate for myself and my ability right from the get-go. So in conversation with the disability unit, like before I registered for anything, we were talking through options and things and courses, and I was told that I should do an extended degree because I would be less stressed that way, and they pretty much suggest this path to a lot of their disabled students. I'm gonna leave that there and let you consider what my reaction and thoughts are on this one. So I did a full course load for my entire university experience. I graduated from my undergrad in 3 years, and I went straight into doing my honors year. And the whole structure for my honors was super different to what I had done in my undergrad. The classes happened a few weeks before the actual university semester officially started, and the rest of the semester was kind of self-study with like assignments and submissions and working on your thesis. It was a pretty hard year for me. Not really academically, I was alright with that, but more like emotionally, and my friends had left because they were done with their degrees and they were getting cool jobs and things, and with the weird schedule of our classes, like we didn't really see any other students at that point. And I think this was where my depression like got really bad, and my masking skills became really good and went into overdrive. And I finished that year and graduated and went straight into doing my master's. This is a really important like context to the whole I dropped out of my PhD thing. So for my master's, I moved faculties because I was sort of like, I'm bored of humanities a little bit, but like not academia. So I'll just switch faculties. So I moved from humanities to law, which is crazy. Completely different ways of thinking and existing, but it was also a completely different campus, which in itself was wild because the law campus was so much easier to navigate. I only needed to be in one building, and the elevator was super simple and accessible, so I could use it by myself. I didn't need to ask a million people to help me or like make sure the doors were open and all of these things. It felt like I could just exhale for a second, and I didn't realize how much stress and anxiety I was carrying when trying to get around a complex campus on the side of a mountain. So I was super happy with that decision, and it took a year longer than I thought to finish my master's because writing a thesis is actually quite difficult and takes a while, and a good few iterations. So my thesis topic, if you are interested, was the right to basic education for disabled children in South Africa and the infiltration of ableism into policy and implementation of this right. So that was cool, and I got my master's at the start of 2019 because like the grading worked weirdly. So I finished it in 2018, but only got it officially in 2019. But right after that, I went straight into working on my PhD. And my original topic was going to be focused on youth activism in South Africa and whether the system, like the legal system, supports and encourages young activists to like embrace and practice their rights. And I worked on this concept on my proposal for like a year. Like, guys, this is a pretty normal time frame, okay? academia is not a fast place. And so I was working on it for a while, and then we had a global pandemic, which is great. It was a crazy time, and I had multiple existential crises about many things, and one of these things was my research, right? Like, how am I supposed to do my research if we're never going to be allowed to go outside ever again? Big questions. Am I a bit dramatic? Maybe. But it's a global pandemic, people. Like, we get to be a little bit dramatic. So that existential crisis noted, I had to pivot my research focus a little bit to account for the pandemic and stuff. And my supervisor was awesome. I loved her so much. And then after working on my proposal for another few months, I submitted it, and the committee was not sold on the legal angle and felt like it fit better into sociology or something in humanities. And we strongly disagreed on that, and so started reworking my proposal with some of their feedback in mind. But during this time, I had a bit of a mental breakdown, which is awesome, after COVID and alongside some other stuff. And in 2021, I started therapy. And I felt like I wasn't really in a space to be productive with my academia stuff and trying to figure out my mental health stuff as well. So I took some time off to have less pressure. But that's what I told myself, right? And I'm not great at doing nothing. So I always tell myself the story that, like, I'm gonna take time off of this and do this instead, right? Resting is not part of my, it was not part of my life back then. So I took a bit of a break, and I worked on my book, and I did that, and it was awesome. And I had all this adrenaline and dopamine or whatever in me, so I was feeling pretty solid about going back to my PhD work. And when I went back in, I had a change of plan and heart, and a lot of therapy sessions led to this. I'd spent a long time, my whole PhD journey at this point, trying my hardest to avoid focusing on disability. Right? I figured my whole life is consumed by disability, and that can be pretty exhausting. So I wanted my PhD, which is also crazy exhausting experience. I wanted my PhD to be my little bubble of not disability related things in my life. But this is where my therapy becomes an important part of the story. So along the way, I had dealt with some big disability things, and I became aware of pockets of internalized ableism that I had, and much of it was wrapped up and tangled in my PhD journey. I do recognize the irony of my master's research specifically looking into ableism infiltrating things, and it had also embedded itself in my mindset at this point. I'll hold that for myself. And I had this aha moment, but let's be honest, it's probably just like a well-timed, open-ended question from my therapist that I had such intense resistance within myself around doing research on disability topics, but that's exactly where my expertise and passion lives. So, like, what am I doing avoiding that? Like, why am I doing that? I can make my life way easier. It doesn't all have to be an impossible uphill battle and starting from scratch. It doesn't have to be. So I spoke to my supervisor and she was super excited about this new direction. Probably the direction that I should have been in from the start, but hey, life is interesting like that. And so I got into crafting the new proposal with my new disability angle, my new topic. And I was enthusiastic and excited about this, and I felt more like on target and aligned. So I was sitting there thinking, like, this is gonna actually work out so well for me. I lived in that energy and headspace for a few more months. And then I had a therapy session and I was just venting about something random with my PhD, and my therapist paused and asked me a question. And you know when there's like an extended pause that it's gonna be a good one. So she paused and said to me, "Do you want a PhD?" What are you even saying to me? What do you mean? I couldn't effectively process that question right then, but she's really good and asks me things multiple times with different intonations, so I can really understand how I feel about it. So she asked me, "Do you want a PhD?" And here are all of the reasons that I had stacked, guys. So, like, yes, I want to do a PhD. I'm already here. So I may as well just finish it. Like, even if it takes another 5 years of my life. Like, I'm here. I'm in it. Academia is hard to get back into. Like, I'm here now. Like, can we just keep going? Like, yes, I want a PhD because everyone's expecting me to do it. Like, that's the natural progression of, like, studying. It's the final, like, peak that you get to. So, like, yes, yes, I want a PhD because people don't think I can do it. So I'm gonna prove that I can. That's where my internalized ableism kind of enters the chat. And then I kind of sat there and she asked me again, and I realized, like, I was like, oh my god, I don't want a PhD. Guys, that is a serious realization. And it was rough, and it always happens like 6 seconds before the end of a session. Then you have to just kind of sit with it. So we had maybe like 7 minutes. And we kind of made a bit of a plan. Because, like, what now? Like, you have this moment where you're like, okay, cool, I'm doing a PhD and I don't want to. I don't want one. What am I gonna do? So I think it's an interesting process because you kind of making a decision is not that hard. You can make a decision in a split second. Like, when I had that realization that I don't want a PhD, like, I kind of decided that I wasn't going to be doing a PhD. Making the decision is not that hard. The thing that's hard is living with what making that decision means for your life and navigating the consequences of that decision. So I had decided right there in that therapy session, but now I had to navigate what it meant in my life and moving forward. So who needs to know about this? My supervisor needs to know, my mom needs to know, and my sponsor needs to know. Everybody else can find out at some point. And it happened in that order. So I feel a little bit ill, like, just talking about this right now and reliving those moments, and like my legs are kind of shaking, but it's okay because the anxiety is leaving my body. So I emailed my supervisor about like dropping out like 15 minutes after that session. And my mom asked me like, "Oh, how was your therapy?" And I was like, "No, it was good." And so I didn't tell my mom immediately. I waited until the next morning. And I decided that I was going to breach the topic. Breach. I don't know. I was gonna tell her my thoughts and decisions in the 7-minute drive that it took to get to the office from my house. I felt like that was a good time. And it was. I kind of pitched my argument, and maybe I like used my book a little bit. Like, "Mom, I'm gonna do my book, and that's a win. Let's do the book." And she's like, "Yeah, you can go back to it whenever you want. It's okay. Like, that's not a problem. And like, this will be good for you." And I was like, wow, like, everybody's really positive about this experience and this decision. So all of my thoughts about like everybody being so disappointed and me being like a failure of a student. Meanwhile, I have 3 degrees. Like, I don't think academia is mad at me. And I told my sponsor like the next week, and they were also like wonderful about it. And I'm so grateful for that. Because it really taught me that like we have so many preconceived ideas about how people are going to receive information, and we really do tilt it towards the negative always. And that whole experience just solidified for me that actually when it's something that you want and you've thought about it and it'll be better for you, people are generally quite supportive of that happening. So that was wild. And the next few therapy sessions were really good because we had to process all of what was happening, because I had no real idea what I was gonna do now that I was not a student anymore. Also, it's weirdly easy to drop out of university. Like, you kind of just send an email and like click a button somewhere on a portal and you're not a student anymore. But I realized a couple days ago that I still have the keys to like my office, like the PhD like room for students, but I think they changed the locks in 5 years. So maybe we'll just call it a memento. And it's really interesting that when I tell people who haven't seen me in a while, that I'm not, they ask me about my PhD, and I say, oh no, I'm not doing it anymore. I decided I don't want one. And people have different reactions to that. Some people are like, good for you. And some are saying like, oh, well, you can always go back. You can change your mind. It's okay. And I'm like, I don't think I will. I think academia had 9 years of my life, and I think that's enough. And I'm doing different things now, having fun in other spaces, growing and learning new things. And yes, I think that that's great. Was I panicking throughout this entire experience? Yes. Was I sure of what I was doing? Not really. But I've now been solidly in the role of relationships and funding manager at the Katie campaign for almost 5 years now, and it's good. It's where I feel aligned, and I think that that's really important to have that and to push through the panic and just figure it out. And I think we figured it out, and I don't feel guilty or negative at all about dropping out of my PhD. I think it was one of the bravest and best decisions that I've made so far. So I don't know if any of you guys have wild academia experiences and these aha moments, but if you have any and you want to share, I am ready to hear them. So I'll see you in the next one.